They said wealth changes people, but no one ever warned Charles Obi that love could disappear faster than money. 15 years after leaving Nigeria, he came back home not in a limousine, but on foot, dust on his shoes, hunger in his eyes, and secrets in his heart. The same mansion he once built for his family now stood before him like a stranger's house, silent, cold, and towering against the crimson evening sky. But Charles didn't come back to show off his riches. He came back to test the hearts that once swore never to forget him. No one knew the man dragging a torn bag down that lonely street was the billionaire who once lifted them from poverty. His beard was thick, his clothes faded, his face hidden behind years of pain. He wanted to see if love still lived behind those familiar gates, or if greed had taken its place. As the rusty gate creaked open, the air inside the compound felt different, heavy, watching, almost alive. The wind whispered through the mango trees, as if carrying old memories. His mother's eyes filled with tears when she saw him, but behind the curtains, shadows moved. The rest of the family waited, unaware that the night ahead would reveal what money could never buy, and what betrayal could awaken. Because sometimes, when love dies inside a house built with kindness, something darker moves in to take its place. Was Charles only testing his family's hearts, or had he walked back into a mansion that no longer welcomed the living? Stay with me till the end, because what Charles found behind those smiling faces will not just break his heart, it might haunt yours too. Before the darkness returned to the Obi mansion, before whispers crawled through the mango trees, there was laughter. In the quiet town of Undercover, the Obis were once a name everyone spoke with admiration. Their compound stretched wide, painted in gold and ivory, a symbol of prosperity and God's favor. Birds sang in the mango grove each morning, and children ran barefoot through the red dust roads shouting, "Mama Obi, Papa Obi," whenever they saw the family's black SUV drive by. But fortune, as the elders often said, is a river. It flows and floods, then disappears without warning. Charles Obi had been that river. The first son of a humble palm wine tapper, he rose from the soil of Amuaka with nothing but determination. After years abroad, he built a business empire in Lagos, then expanded to Ghana, South Africa, and beyond. His success lifted the entire family. New houses, education, businesses, everything the Obis touched seemed to turn to gold. Yet, when the weight of wealth began to suffocate him, Charles vanished. No word, no trace. Some said he was kidnapped. Others whispered that greed had swallowed him whole. But the truth was more human than rumor. He had grown tired of a world that only bowed when he held money in his hands. Now, 15 years later, the mansion stood proud but hollow. The father had died. The once bustling home had become a den of quiet competition. His younger brother, Jonas, managed the estate, while his mother, Mama Obi, aged fast beneath the weight of loneliness. The children, Charles's nephews and nieces, had inherited their uncle's arrogance, but none of his heart. Every morning, the same ritual repeated itself. Prayers in the courtyard, idle gossip at the breakfast table, and the sound of money changing hands. The laughter still echoed, but it was hollow, rehearsed, bought. The villagers noticed it first. They said, "The Obis are blessed but not happy." Others murmured darker things, that ever since the patriarch's death, strange lights flickered near the mango grove, and some nights they heard footsteps where no one walked. But no one dared to speak these things aloud in front of the family. After all, who questions those the gods have blessed? That was before the old man appeared on the road one evening, dragging a torn bag and a rusted walking stick. Charles had changed. His once rich voice was soft, almost broken. His eyes, once proud and sharp, carried the stillness of someone who had watched too much of the world fall apart. He looked poor, yes, but there was something else in his presence, a calm that unsettled those who met him. He reached the village just as the sun began to bleed into the earth. Children ran from him at first, mistaking him for a beggar. Yet when Mama Obi saw him, she froze. For a moment, her frail hands trembled. The air between them felt charged, like a storm about to break. "Charles," she whispered. He nodded. The compound went silent. Birds stopped singing. Even the dogs backed away from the gate. That night, word spread across Amuaka. The lost son has returned. But instead of joy, something colder moved through the family. Jonas was the first to speak. If he is truly Charles, where has he been all these years? Why return like this? His wife, Ada, added softly, "No man leaves riches behind unless he's hiding from something." And so the seed of doubt was planted. Charles said little. He asked only for shelter, promising to reveal everything in time. But as he walked through his old home, he could feel it. The air was heavier, the walls listening. The portraits of ancestors seemed to follow him with their painted eyes. He slept in the small back room that night, near the servants' quarters. The mattress was thin, and the wind hissed through the broken windows. Somewhere in the darkness, a door creaked open by itself. Charles closed his eyes, whispering an old proverb his father once taught him. When love leaves a home, the spirits of hunger and greed take its place. Outside, the mango branches swayed though the air was still. And far away, behind the compound, a shadow moved, slowly, deliberately, toward the old well no one used anymore. The next morning, nothing seemed out of place. But the villagers would later swear that from that night onward the mansion awakened differently. The air smelled of old rain, though the sky was clear. Even the birds that once filled the courtyard stayed silent on their branches, watching. The news had spread fast. The prodigal son, the one who built his family's fortune, had returned, but not in glory. He came like a ghost of himself, his wealth gone, his eyes hollow, his heart carrying something no one could name. The villagers whispered that such returns were never ordinary. When a man leaves rich and returns poor, the elders said, he brings something back with him, something that feeds on regret. Inside the Obi mansion, life moved awkwardly around Charles's presence. He kept mostly to himself, sleeping in the small servant room near the back, while his brother Jonas ran the house with cold precision. Jonas's wife, Ada, had grown restless. Each night, she woke up sweating, claiming to hear voices whispering in the hall. Soft, drawn-out chants, not in Yoruba, not in English, but in a tongue older than both. At first, Jonas mocked her. "It's guilt that talks to you, not ghosts." But when the whispers began to echo even in his dreams, he stopped laughing. The first real sign came 3 nights later. A servant named Ngozi went to draw water from the old well behind the mango grove. Moments later, her scream cut through the compound. They found her collapsed beside the well, her face pale, her eyes wide open. She pointed at the dark hole, trembling. "There was a hand," she stammered. "It reached up, black as night, and it called his name." "Whose name?" Jonas demanded. "Charles." That evening, the family gathered inside, locking every door. Rain fell like needles against the roof, and thunder rolled low, like drums of war. Charles sat near the window, watching the storm. "Some things don't die when we forget them," he murmured. "They wait." Jonas slammed his fist on the table. "Enough riddles. You bring strange weather and whispers to this house. What do you want from us?" Charles turned slowly, only to see if you still remember love. For a heartbeat, silence ruled the room, until a loud clang echoed from the veranda. They rushed out and found the bronze ancestral gong lying in the mud. No one had touched it in years. The last time it was struck was on the night their father died. Mama Obi fell to her knees, her voice shaking. "Your father's spirit is restless." But Charles said nothing. His eyes were fixed on the gong, and in its reflection, the lightning showed something else, a tall figure standing behind them, gone in the next flash. The next morning, they discovered wet footprints leading from the gong into the house. The prints stopped right before Charles's door. Jonas ordered the servants to clean it, but none dared go near. "That is not human water," one whispered. "It smells like the well." Charles emerged from his room later, calm as ever, and helped sweep the mud himself. "Fear only feeds what you don't understand," he said quietly. Yet that night, the storm returned, heavier than before. Ada was the first to hear it. A low humming, like a song sung by a child. It came from the backyard, weaving between the raindrops. When she peeked through the curtains, she saw the mango trees swaying violently though the wind was still. Something glowed faintly near the cracked well, blue light, pulsing like breath. Then she saw him. Charles stood beside the well, his hands raised, whispering something she couldn't hear. The light flared, and for a moment, another face appeared beside his, an old man's, faint and sorrowful. Ada gasped and stepped back, tripping over a chair. Jonas woke to her screams. When he ran outside, the light was gone, and Charles stood alone in the rain. "What are you doing there?" Jonas shouted. Charles turned, his face half lit by lightning. "Speaking to Father." Jonas froze. "He's been dead for years." Charles smiled faintly. "The dead never leave where they are owed peace." From that night onward, the house began to change. Mirrors fogged without cause. Candles flickered though windows were shut. The smell of wet earth followed them into every room. And the laughter, what once filled the house, turned bitter. Jonas grew paranoid, accusing Charles of witchcraft. "You cursed this family when you walked away from your wealth," he shouted one morning. "You made deals with spirits, and now you bring them here." Charles simply replied, "I made no deal. The deal was made long before I left, when greed entered this house and love was buried beneath gold." His words hung in the air like smoke. Then came the festival night. Omuaka was alive with drums and firelight. Villagers danced to honor the ancestors, wearing masks carved from wood and bone. But inside the Obi mansion, no music played. Charles sat under the mango tree alone, staring at the cracked bell his father once used to summon the family for prayer. His fingers brushed its edge. "Father," he whispered, "show them." A gust of wind swept through the compound. Candles inside the house blew out. Inside, Ada screamed again, this time not from fear of a shadow, but from something much worse. The family's ancestral portraits had fallen from the wall. The glass had cracked across every face but one, Charles's father. His image remained untouched, his painted eyes now strangely bright, watching them all. Mama Obi began to pray. The servants fled. Jonas grabbed a Bible and shouted, "We are not afraid." But the words trembled on his lips when the house doors began to slam on their own, one by one, until only Charles stood outside in the courtyard, untouched by chaos. He lifted the old bell. When it rang, the air went still. The thunder stopped. Even the rain froze in the air for a heartbeat. Then a voice came, not loud, not soft, but ancient, echoing from every wall. "The river forgets no debt. What was taken in greed must be returned in pain." Jonas fell to his knees. "Charles, what have you done?" Charles's eyes shimmered with sorrow. "I did nothing, brother. You invited this when you forgot kindness." Lightning split the sky. The mango tree burst into flame without burning, its branches glowing with blue fire. From its roots, the cracked well began to tremble. The earth opened. Out came not water, but darkness, thick, whispering, shaped like human hands. They reached for Jonas first. He screamed, scrambling back, while Mama Obi clutched her chest, whispering prayers. Charles stepped forward. "Stop!" The shadows froze, as if obeying him. He knelt, touching the ground. "Father," he whispered, "forgive them. That night, no one in the Obi mansion slept. The villagers later said they saw strange lights flickering over the compound, heard drums though no one was playing, and smelled the faint scent of palm wine and smoke, the scent of the old patriarch's last feast. And as dawn crept over Omuaka, a single sound broke the silence, the bell. Soft, distant. 3 times. The family gathered in the courtyard, trembling. The mango tree was now bare, its leaves scattered like ashes. And beneath it, in the mud, lay a message carved into the earth. Letters burned deep as if written by unseen hands. "He who forgets the giver loses the gift." Mama Obi whipped. Jonas could not speak. Charles stood still for a long time, staring at the words. The dawn light touched his face, and for the first time since his return, he smiled, but there was no joy in it. He whispered, Almost to himself, the house remembers now. And with that, he walked toward the rising sun, his shadow stretching long behind him until it vanished into the morning mist. But those who live near the Obi mansion swear that even now, when storms roll in and thunder cracks over Amuaka, you can still hear that bell, calling softly from the mango tree. The morning after the storm, Amuaka village was strangely quiet. The sun rose pale and weak, as if exhausted from what it had witnessed. Dew clung to the grass like tiny tears, and a mist hovered low over the ground, swallowing sound. The Obi mansion, once a monument of pride and wealth, now stood heavy with silence. Doors hung loose, curtains fluttered through broken windows, and the old mango tree, stripped bare of leaves, watched over the house like a weary guardian. Charles was gone. No one saw when he left. Only the faint trail of footsteps led toward the forest path, the same one travelers once said led to the river that forgets no debt. Inside, Jonas sat motionless by the window, staring at the well in the courtyard. His eyes were distant, hollowed out by what he could not explain. His hands, once trembling with greed and anger, now simply rested in his lap, tired, defeated. Mama Obi's voice broke the silence. "He took the curse with him," she whispered. "He always carried the family's burden, even when we blamed him for it." Ada, pale and shaken, nodded slowly. "But can a curse ever die, Mama? Or does it just wait for another heart to forget love?" Mama Obi didn't answer. She only turned her gaze to the mango tree and began to hum a song she hadn't sung since her husband's funeral, a mourning song of forgiveness and remembrance. The villagers gathered to see the mansion. Some came out of curiosity, others out of fear. They spoke of the nights, strange lights and thunder that spoke in human tones. But when they stepped into the courtyard, their laughter faded. For carved deep into the trunk of the mango tree were words none dared erase. "He who forgets the giver loses the gift." The elders gathered to interpret the message. Chief Okeke, the oldest among them, touched the bark with his wrinkled hands and said, "The ancestors speak in symbols. When wealth blinds a man's heart, he becomes poorer than the beggar who still remembers kindness." He turned to Jonas, who,